Greetings, Lucky Legends. My name is Lucky. This is Lucky Lad TV. I'm your host for this video, and it is time for a new series. Maybe. This is what I call a test pilot episode, which essentially means I am recording one episode of this series, which is Lucky's Looking Glass. And based on the support and interaction that the series gets will determine whether or not I continue to record it and produce it as an actual series on the channel. A lot of things are going to be changing about the channel as I move and try and get back into an actual recording and upload schedule, and there will be, plenty of update videos regarding that. However, I want to, in the meantime, try out a bunch of different stuff to see what you guys would be interested in seeing in the future, and to see what is popular and what is not as popular, so I can really gauge what to do and what not to do when I really get back into the channel, like in full force. So basically what this series is, I'm going to be giving you guys my perspective on some Pokemon that I think really don't see as much usage as they should, or they don't necessarily get the recognition or attention that they deserve, and they're good examples of Pokemon that are really versatile and that I really like to use, but the sets that you would see on something like Smogon are much more limited than what I think is actually representative of what they can do. So I think that's really the best way of explaining it, is that it's like an expansion of potential sets and variants that you can use with certain competitive Pokemon. And with that, I'm just gonna, get right on into it. Druddigon is the cave Pokemon. It is Pokedex number 621. It is Mono Dragon type, which is... Originally I thought, oh, Mono Dragon type, that's really rare, but when I was actually looking through it, I realized that it's not. Because originally I was thinking, well, the Dragon Ground types and the Dragon Flying types, they command the Dragon typing, but when I actually looked at it, you have the entire Haxorus line, the entire Goodra line, you have the pre-evolutions of Dragonite, the pre-evolutions of Salamence, you have a lot of, and then of course you have Druddigon, you have a lot of Pokemon that are just Dragon type. Whereas the Dragon Flying types and the Dragon Ground types are, generally speaking, reserved for the final evolutions. And so originally I thought, oh, it's so unique, but not so much. Druddigon is 5'3". It's a little bit shorter than me. However, Druddigon weighs 306.4 pounds. That's more than twice what I weigh. Druddigon's a little fatty. And as you can see here, Druddigon's base stats are... It has a base stat total of 485, which is relatively standard for a Dragon type. It's actually probably a little bit low for a Dragon type, because so many of them are pseudo-legendaries. But 485 is really good. Its special attack is obviously garbage because it's a physical attacker. Its HP stat is... It's decent, but nothing phenomenal. But the problem with Druddigon is that its speed stat is extremely, extremely low. It has a base speed stat of 48, which fully invested, like a jolly Druddigon with 252 EVs in speed, only reaches a speed of 110, which is the equivalent of an uninvested, completely uninvested 90 base speed Pokemon, which isn't even that fast, especially given the tier that Druddigon is in. However, Druddigon has access to 3 really good abilities. Rough Skin, which is, of course, most people know it as the physically defensive Garchomp set with the Rocky Helmet, where if you hit it between Rocky Helmet and Rough Skin, a little more than 1/4 of your HP is taken off from attacking once. I believe if you have Life Orb, and you attack something that has Rough Skin and Rocky Helmet, I believe you will die in 3 hits. I think. I'm not sure, but I think. It's either 3 or 4. And then, of course, we have Sheer Force, which is, you know, most people know Sheer Force for Darmanitan. Common Choice Scarfer up in the UU tier, because Sheer Force boosts the power of attacks by 1/3 if it has an extra effect, like a chance to burn, a chance to poison, something like that. And in exchange for that power boost, it gets rid of the potential added effect. And then it also has Mold Breaker, which is... When I think of Mold Breaker, I think of Haxorus, using, you know, Earthquake on Pokemon with Levitate. Another really good example of Mold Breaker is Excadrill, one of my favorite Pokemon to use in battle. As a, you know, mono dragon type, it's weak to Ice, Dragon, and Fairy, resisting Fire, Water, Grass, and Electric, with no immunities. And last but not least, it is of course in Smogon's RU tier, which is the 3rd usage tier. I don't count the BL tiers, and I don't count Ubers, and PU is actually debatable, but it's OU, then UU, then RU, then NU, and, you know, you can put more stuff in there if you want. But it's, you know, the bottom 50%, so to speak. And here is a good example of a Druddigon set. This, I name my Druddigons Ruffles, because the ruffled pattern on its chest reminds me of the Ruffles potato chips, which I used to be, like, obsessed with. I used to eat them all the time. And I, of course, I'm showing you guys all of these at level 50 to show you actual in-battle stats. Make sure that you're not wasting any EVs. This is a physically defensive Druddigon set. Relatively standard. I believe this is a Smogon set, or a slight variation on a Smogon set. Stealth Rock, Glare, Dragon Claw, and Iron Head. Max defense, max HP, with the rest just being put into attack for, you know, just for GP, general purposes. Stealth Rock is, of course, Stealth Rocks. They do what they do. Glare is a normal type attack. Well, it's a normal type status move with 100% accuracy that paralyzes the target. It's basically Thunder Wave, but normal type. So you can use it to paralyze ground types. Ground types aren't, you know, the biggest issue in this tier. However, being able to paralyze ground types is really, really useful. Just because some of them, like Doug Trio, which is, I don't think it's in RU, I think it's in PU. But Doug Trio is really, really, really fast. It has a base speed stat of, I believe, 115, and being able to paralyze something like that would be extremely useful. Then, of course, you have Dragon Claw for stab and Iron Head. Excuse me. Iron Head for coverage. It covers the Ice, and it covers the Fairy. It's super effective against both of those. It's a really good exchange point with Dragon. However, there's a lot of other things that Druddigon can do. This would be a really good lead set. For example, a very common lead Pokemon in Ambipom, in the RU tier, is Ambipom. Can't speak today. And Ambipom, of course, has access to Fake Out, but you can sponge up a Fake Out with this set, and then Ambipom would most likely go for either U-Turn, or depending on what else it has, maybe it would go for Ice Punch if it has it. If you're worried about the Ice Punch, I would say switch out, because Ambipom has a lot of power. However, to the same extent, if you can get off your Stealth Rocks or a Glare onto that Ambipom, it would be really, really useful, as Ambipom is very, very fast and very, very powerful. However, like I said, there are a lot of other sets that you can use. For example, this is a set that I'm a big fan of, because it really shows what Mold Breaker can do. Because what most people don't, when people think of Mold Breaker, most of the time they think of being able to hit Rotom with Earthquake, because Mold Breaker ignores the ability Levitate. That's, you know, one of the big things that it's known for. But that's not all it does. It ignores anything that prevents the effectiveness of moves. For example, if your opponent has Storm Drain, you can hit them with a water type attack. If your opponent has Sap Sipper, you can hit them with a grass type attack, and so on and so forth. However, it goes a little bit further than that, even so. If a Pokemon has Magic Bounce, and you have Mold Breaker, you can still use Toxic on them, you can still use Will-O-Wisp on them, and you can still use Stealth Rock on them without it being bounced back. In the RU tier, Xatu is a thing, and Xatu has Magic Bounce, and it's a very good lead Pokemon because it has good stats all around, and it's, like I said, it has Magic Bounce. You can't set up your Stealth Rocks against it, and it has access to Defog, so it's a really good counter to it. However, with Mold Breaker, that's not an issue because it will ignore Magic Bounce and you can set up your Stealth Rocks. On this set, I also have the Sucker Punch for that very reason. Xatu would make sense as a counter to the Stealth Rocks, but with Mold Breaker it wouldn't be an issue, and then you can use Sucker Punch on Xatu for super effective damage. Iron Head, of course, is there for coverage. And then you have Dragon Tail. I decided that for this type of set, Dragon Tail would be a little bit better than Dragon Claw, because once you've set up your Stealth Rocks, and now you have reliable entry hazard damage, forcing your opponent to switch by hitting them with Dragon Tail would be a little bit better because you can get more chip damage off and you can prevent your opponent from, setting up. And this is, of course, neutrally bulky set with heavy HP investment, but it's still max attack adamant because you really want that Sucker Punch and that Dragon Tail to hit really hard because, that's still the point. One thing that people don't realize is that Druddigon can set up. It's still really slow. As I explained at the beginning of this video, even with max speed jolling investment, it only gets up to 110 speed. And that's slow. I'm not gonna, try and tell you that, oh yeah, it's fast enough. Ambipom outspeeds it uninvested. Completely uninvested. A lot of things will outspeed it uninvested. Because it's slow. That's all there is to it. It's slow, it's not fast. However, it does get access to Hone Claws. And by setting up Hone Claws, Gunk Shot will never miss. And you're probably thinking, well, that's kind of like a big stretch to go just to set up so Gunk Shot doesn't miss. However, with the addition of Sheer Force and Hone Claws brings you to +1. So that 172 attack goes to, well, you're adding 86. So that's 258. Add Sheer Force to that, and that's 258 base attack with Gunk Shot that is powered up to 160 base power because it gets the Sheer Force boost. That'll demolish Fairy types. It'll probably one-shot Aromatisse, which is down in that tier. It'll wreck shop. Fire Punch is for Steel types, because with Dragon Claw and Gunk Shot you will get walled by a Steel type, especially if it's a really fat, physically defensive one. Like, you wouldn't really be able to touch Steelix. Steelix would completely wall you. However, with access to Fire Punch, then you can, deal a lot of heavy damage to Steelix. The Fire Punch gets boosted up to a base 100 power, which is a lot. It's a lot of power. And the Citrus Berry is for the purpose of longevity, because since you are setting up, you want to be able to regain your HP. For example, you could switch this thing in on probably something that's, choiced into something that's not going to deal that much damage. Or you could switch it in on a not very effective attack. And that way you would, have a reliable chance to set up your Hone Claws and hopefully get your Citrus Berry boost as well. However, I saved the best for last. This is my favorite Druddigon set. It will outspeed an uninvested base 75 speed Pokemon. I didn't have a specific Pokemon in mind for that. I just thought if I give it max speed investment, it only gets up to 100. And if I make it Jolly, then it's not going to hit as hard. So I figured might as well just go with 96 speed, so it'll outspeed those uninvested 75 speed Pokemon. 36 into HP. And then it is Max Attack Adamant, Sheer Force, Choice Banded. So all of its moves, with the exception of Dragon Claw, get the Sheer Force boost. So Fire Punch, like I said, goes up to 100, and Crunch and Iron Head go up to, I think, 104, or something like that. You have base 189 attack, and you are Choice Banded. You're going to kill stuff really easily, and you're going to kill stuff really easily. This is my favorite Druddigon set because it's a revenge killer. You lose a Mon, or you are forced to switch safely into Druddigon, and then you can just nuke something. You can nuke whatever your opponent would try to send in. The other really good thing about Druddigon is that it has really good coverage for what it is. It doesn't get walled by any one type. Water is... you can hit it with Crunch or Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw would do more because it's stab. It doesn't get walled by Steel types because you have Fire Punch. Crunch also works. Crunch is there to sort of fill in the gaps. Because without Crunch, there's not much you can do to certain types. Or rather, not even certain types, just certain Pokemon. For example, if your opponent has... I don't know why they would run it, but if your opponent happened to have a Heat-proof Bronzong, then you wouldn't really be able to touch it. Fire Punch wouldn't do that much, Iron Head wouldn't do anything, and Dragon Claw wouldn't do anything. So you have Crunch. That was kind of the mindset for, you know, this little setup here, is that you're not going to get walled by any one specific Pokemon because you have that really good coverage. And with Choice Band, Sheer Force, Max Attack Adamant, you're going to hit like a fucking truck, as I have said. So, that is Lucky's Looking Glass. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. It's very much greatly appreciated. Let me know if there's a Pokemon that you would like to see featured in this. Let me know if you're digging this series, if you really think it'll be, you know, a good series for the channel, if you would be interested in seeing it again. Like I said, the whole point of this test palette episode is to gauge the interaction and to see, you know, how much potential support and viewership this type of series would get. So that's all I really need to say about this. Thank you guys so very much for watching. I'm going to get up out of here. Best of luck out there. I will see you all soon. Goodbye.